show you.
5 minutes from now.
Alright, we are back. We are Lost Futures, a Mark Fisher podcast, and I'm Steve.
And I'm Marlo.
And today we are discussing David Lynch's film Blue Velvet from 1986.
Through a vaguely Jameson lens.
Right, we're going to be reading this alongside of a chapter from Postmodernism or The Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism by Frederick Jameson. Just a moment, he just recently passed.
Yeah, I guess this is our first Jameson-focused episode since he passed, so
R.I.P. He's
dicks out for Freddy, baby.
an illustrious career and, yeah, one of the longest running, to my knowledge, Marxist cultural critics who specifically was interested in an orthodox approach to Marxism, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he basically wrote much of Mark Fisher's career, is a thing to say, and I think in this chapter in particular, because this is chapter 9 of Postmodernism, and this is not the first time we have referenced chapter 9 of Postmodernism, because he discusses at length Philip K. Dick's time out of joint in this. Fisher himself quotes this chapter in The Weird and the Eerie in reference to Philip K. Dick. Fisher does not directly discuss Blue Velvet extensively in The Weird and the Eerie, but, you know, he discusses David Lynch. Frankly, I didn't look it up if he has a Blue Velvet thing that basically apes this chapter, but
He does not.
So he's only...
I looked for it.
Okay, he's only dipped his hand in this chapter 9 bucket once. We're getting 2 episodes out of this, and if Fisher writes something about the wild...
Something wild.
It's Something Wild, which is the other piece of fiction that... Well, yeah, the other film, fictional narrative piece that Jameson references in this, then I guess we'll do a 3rd episode on chapter 9. But this is a very bunch of Mark Fisher, like specific things Mark Fisher has talked about, like he's putting all together here, so I think it really does highlight his influence on Fisher.
Yeah, nostalgia for the present. We've been talking about nostalgia for as long as this podcast has been going. It's in the first chapter of Ghosts of My Life. It's something that I think Fisher was haunted by or very interested in the ways in which nostalgia worked. And you can see that both in The Weird and the Eerie and in Capitalist Realism.
Mm-hmm.
And how nostalgia plays a part in maintaining the horizons of our political possibilities and also our fictional possibilities. And Jameson here, I think, is more interested in the way in which people historicize their own time through the fictional narratives that they write in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And so chapter 9 therefore is called Nostalgia for the Present. Before we get into that too much, though, if you haven't seen the movie Blue Velvet, it is one of my favorite David Lynch films, maybe my second after Mulholland Drive.
I have not seen Lost Highway recently enough to definitively say I think I might like Lost Highway a little better than this one, but it's a movie by David Lynch, and it's one that people always talk about, and it's a pretty darn good movie, and it's a little interesting in its own interesting ways. I do enjoy the movie. It's not my favorite movies generally, but I can sit down and watch it, certainly.
Okay, so what happens in Blue Velvet? 1986 neo-noir mystery thriller film starts out with a father watering the lawn, and there's white picket fences. There's also men on fire trucks going by the camera, staring directly at the camera and just waving slowly as they go by.
You get the feeling that what's-his-face stole from this for Edward Scissorhands.
Tim Burton.
Yeah, Tim Burton.
Tim Burton.
There's a very Burton-y, like, overdoneness to the way this neighborhood is depicted.
Yeah. It also reminds me of The Truman Show. It seems like a simulated reality where people are just going along on loops. And I think the beginning and the end of the film both have the same fire truck going around and the same guys waving to show that nothing changes here. So father watering the grass, boom, has a heart attack. Son, played by Kyle MacLachlan, is like, oh my God, I gotta go home and help out with the shop in the small town of Lumberton, North Carolina.
Yeah, so his good son off to college comes home to help with it.
Kyle MacLachlan is walking around in the grass. Second time grass comes up and stumbles on an ear. Not just an ear.
We didn't really cover the first time grass comes up, so we should just say it's a very iconic scene. It's something that Jameson comments on. It's something that Zizek comments on. Again, this is the opening scene. Very whimsical music is playing as the father is watering the lawn, has a heart attack. The music continues to play, zooms in on the father lying in the grass, then kind of macroscopically zooms in on the grass and the dirt itself. You see bugs crawling around, and the music kind of gets distorted, and it gets this slight horror tonality as it transitions to the next scene.
But all of a sudden, father has a heart seizure, falls down to the grass, and then, instead of showing the family confused, calling for ambulance, whatever, Lynch does something typically Lynchian. The camera moves extremely close to the grass, even penetrates the grass, and we see what is the real of this idyllic green lawn.